Hello and welcome back to WA Real. I'm your host, Bryn. The future of work, workspace and entrepreneurship are just some of the areas that we're going to dive into today with my guest, Brodie McCulloch. Born and raised in Derby in WA, Brodie studied commerce, marketing and e-commerce at Murdoch Uni. At the same time, he was in the Army Reserves as a gunner for 5 years. Later on in his career, in 2010, he founded Spacecubed, the home to a community of small businesses and entrepreneurs. It provides both the physical infrastructure as well as the events and programs to support this community and works towards the vision of empowering and connecting 100,000 businesses and change makers by 2015. Brodie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. So, as I said in the intro, you grew up in Derby, which is a long way up north. And one of the things I like to do at the start of all these podcasts, because it's WA Real, is just understand people's relationship with WA. So can you give us an idea of what it's like growing up way up north in Derby?
Yeah, so my family moved around a lot. So my brother was born in Kalgoorlie, dad was a social worker, mum was a nurse. So they sort of did their country time working throughout the country, which a lot of public servants do and still do. So we actually ended up in Port Hedland for most of my sort of early childhood. So enjoyed the country life before moving to the city when I was sort of 11 or 12. So, West Australia and country West Australia, I think through a lot of the work we're doing now is an important part because it can be sort of left behind in a lot of the conversations we have when we even talk about the future of work and people able to work anywhere. I think the focus we've had on the country and regional Australia has been really important, and probably a lot of that's driven through my early time living in the country.
How was the city of Perth viewed? Because it's like thousands of kilometres away, the big smoke.
I think it's still probably viewed in the same way that it's a long way away in the big smoke. So I don't think much has changed in my interactions with regional communities. The same ideas are there for sure. Yeah. I think probably the connectedness and that's probably the big change in that now with the internet you can be so connected within those communities, and I think there's a lot of change to be done in that space.
So you went and studied commerce, marketing and e-commerce. And this is back in 2000?
Yes.
Yeah. So what drew you towards that and e-commerce as well? Because that must have been really early days as well.
It was, and I guess I, at the time, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I think a lot of people don't know what they want to do when they're sort of 17, 18 years old. So saw a commerce degree as a way to get a widespread of different ideas. And I guess for me it wasn't until sort of year 3, year 4 of that where I did do actual dedicated sort of e-commerce units and had a really good lecturer at the time who had gone through the .com boom and bust, and he was now sort of lecturing and working running those e-commerce units, and the unit was actually set up your own business, which just wasn't the norm at university at the time. Even now, it's not necessarily the norm. So, he was sort of thinking outside the box. The unit was just, build something. I think for me, that's probably what got me started on this track around entrepreneurship, where I did try a number of different ideas. I was working, but trying different things at the same time. And without that unit, I don't know if I would have been on this path. So.
Yeah. As you look back, were some of the things you learned, are they still applicable, or quite a lot of it obsolete with the way things have moved? Or?
Yeah, I think that in general, I'm not accounting is definitely not my strongest point, and so I think some of those things definitely now later in life have come in to help me. Yes. So even looking back at what I learned then, wasn't much use for sort of 10 to 12 years, but now it's actually I sort of need this stuff every day with what I'm doing. I definitely think in the e-commerce things have moved, but the basic principles of getting started and starting small and growing your ideas, I think that's carried on to today. And it's a lot easier now to do. Whereas back then I remember starting a business and to build a website was $15,000 sort of thing. Whereas now it's free essentially to build your own website. So I think the tools have got cheaper and more ubiquitous, but a lot of the mindset that I learned through that unit and also through broader university and starting up businesses definitely hasn't changed. I think it's become more important now just with how quickly things are changing.
So at the same time you were in the Army Reserves, and I found this really interesting. Anybody that's decided to go and pursue that as well. Were there many other things? Why did you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And were there any lessons there that you learned that have stood you in good stead?
Yeah, so I actually joined, I think I deferred for 12 months from university. I think after my sort of second year, where I was like, right, what is all this stuff I'm learning? I think in year 3 was when you actually learned things you were interested in.
It all started clicking.
That's right. So through that process, I was like, right, I want to go and explore, and I guess people either take a gap year and go and travel. I actually joined the Army Reserves and crammed in a lot of my basic sort of training into that first year, so you got more qualified. When I went back to university after that, university was literally the easiest thing I've ever done compared to digging holes in the desert. So I think that taught a lot about, just when things get tough, I'm just going to keep pushing through, which definitely aligns well and has helped in my entrepreneurial journey. Learning from, working as a team and working with the people around you to get a result. The Army definitely drilled that in. Definitely some of the sleep deprivation sort of helped. But the skills that I learned there, I think that sort of, anyone to go through that if they don't know what they're wanting to do, you can go and travel through Europe, that's no problem. But for me, the Army was a really good way to sort of consolidate a lot of my thinking, because it gives you a fair bit of time to think. The saying sort of hurry up and wait is sort of what the Army lives by, and it gave me the opportunity.
Can you explain that a bit further?
Hurry up. Well, everything's always in a rush to happen, but often there's just long periods of nothing happening. So, and I think that's in business as well. You can be in a rush all the time, but keeping an eye on the bigger picture and knowing that sometimes you just got to stop. It's not actually good to be running and doing stuff all the time. Sometimes you need to step back, review what's going on, and then move forward. I think a lot of those lessons were learned through that experience, and the people I got to work with were really great, and set me up to do probably the other things I've done throughout my career, where I'm working for a cruise line in the US. I think my Army background actually, that experience definitely helped with that, because long hours, all those sort of things. But it was, definitely a pivotal thing for me, and I do recommend it to people if they're unsure about what they want to do in life. Then that's a great way to work it out very quickly. Even if you work out that that's not what you want to do, it opens you up to a whole different world of people and opportunities and ideas, which you might not think necessarily from the Army that that's what it's going to do for you, but it did for me, and I think put me in really good stead from an entrepreneurship perspective to actually use some of those skills to grow what I've been working on.
I think I myself didn't go into the forces, but certainly one of the things that strikes me from some of the good friends that I've got is the real strength of leadership, the skills that they have, and their sense of what high performance actually looks like. And sometimes we don't always have that role model earlier on in life, and to be exposed to those two things, this is what leadership looks like, this is what high performance looks like, means that we have a clear benchmark to live by for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I think learning it as early as possible is important. I think it's some of the reason why we're doing entrepreneurship programs and enterprise skills programs with schools, because the earlier you learn those skills, the better they'll serve you throughout life as well. So I think there's parallels with that where, definitely the earlier you can learn these things, they'll just, the compound impact they'll have over your life is probably a good way to explain it.
And we'll dig into that in a bit more in just a bit later. So for anybody out there who's listening to this podcast and not quite sure of actually what Spacecubed is, from my very limited little introduction, can you explain what it is and also what is a social enterprise, because it's described as such?
Yeah, so maybe I'll explain the second one first. So the social enterprise, when I moved back to Perth in 2010, I was looking at, I'd sort of seen a lot of different models overseas and had read a lot of sort of Muhammad Yunus's work around social business, and he was set up micro banking in Bangladesh. So I read a lot about that. At the same time, I had read a lot about how capitalism was sort of destroying our world. And this sort of, on one hand, capitalism can do so much to, and it's really lifted everyone, not everyone, but lifted a lot of people out of poverty and improved standards of life, and provides that sort of promise and hope for a lot of other people. But on the flip side, it's also created a lot of destructive forces that we're now trying to deal with, from climate change and a whole range of different things, inequality. So I read these two, read a number of different books around this, and moved back to Perth and saw an opportunity at the time. It was like peak of the mining boom. Everyone was really busy digging stuff up out of the ground and shipping it overseas. And I guess I saw an opportunity where, how can we support people who are coming up with new ideas to tackle some of these big social, environmental and economic problems, and social business and social enterprise where people, it's not just the profit motivation for a business, it's also the social and the environmental impact. And there's a whole spectrum of different ways this could work. It could be a charity that sets up a for-profit business. It could be a business that bakes in its social impact into what it's doing. There's a number of certifications, so we're a B Corp as Spacecubed, which means we measure ourselves not just on profit made, but also on the impact we have on the community. So a whole range of different ways you can do it, but essentially it boils down to that. It's what, through your business activities, are you doing that have that positive impact and can benefit the community. So from the social enterprise piece, I was very interested in that and started looking at the time around setting up a bike share social enterprise in Fremantle. This was very early on, before there was bike shares everywhere. That's right. So started looking at that, and through that process, really saw that there was this big gap for how entrepreneurs were being supported and how people with new ideas were being supported in Western Australia. There was a few different government programs, but in general, considering so much of the workforce is moving towards needing to be more entrepreneurial in just their daily lives, there just wasn't that level of support. So we started looking at, what are the opportunities to do that? And Spacecubed was what came out of that, where providing, at the time it was just providing space and co-location and support, peer support for people, but it's really grown a lot since then, and our spaces have grown, the community's grown. Spacecubed's got about 2,600 odd members now from a whole range of different industries. And we've restructured it so people join as a member of Spacecubed, and then they can access all our different types of spaces and programs and events and support.
Like Solder and Combine.
Yeah, we have we're quite different to other. I was just at the Australia Coworking conference last week, where a lot of other companies have just got one brand which they're rolling out interstate or nationally or across cities. Whereas we've taken a different approach where people join as that member of Spacecubed, and then if they're in creative industries, Riff is really a great space for them. We have a lot of digital agencies and those guys using that space, a bit more creative, a few more plants, that sort of thing. And then we've got Flux, which is more New York industrial, which is more engineering companies, later stage technology companies. And it's amazing when you see people come in and they visit both spaces, often they'll be drawn to one or the other. So this allows them to be part of a bigger community as Spacecubed, where they get access to, our online network, passport program, so when they're interstate they can use our partner spaces over there. They get access to all the programs, events, but then also these different types of spaces depending on what work they're doing and what they need from space and need from community. But it has grown really rapidly, so we've got over 5,000 square metres of space on St George's Terrace now, which makes us one of the bigger, definitely one of the biggest flexible space providers, but also one of the biggest property managers in the city.
Yes.
And we have, literally, over 800 desks, so over 800 people using our spaces daily. And all of those people are parts of different, either it could be a single startup founder who's got a new idea, or it could be a larger company. We have Microsoft at one of our spaces. We often have Woodside and BHP using our spaces. So it's changed a lot in that we started with that intention around startups and just supporting entrepreneurs, but now it really is about, there's a new way of work coming. Yes, it's definitely important to support them when we run a range of programs and investment programs to do that. But at the same time, how everyone's working is changing. So how can we facilitate that to happen and connect those entrepreneurs in more closely with larger companies to work on their big challenges? So it's evolved a lot, and I guess, we're really interested. We've done all of that through a downturn as well.
Yes. Yes.
So we're very excited about what happens over the next 3 to 5 years. Whereas quite the opposite in Sydney and Melbourne, where they've been going through a boom from a property perspective. And from an economy perspective, whereas we've been on the opposite trajectory, so it just seems to be turning around now.
Was it a big scary leap when you first set it up?
Yeah, it's one of those cases, I think, of you don't know what you don't know when you start something, and if you did know, you probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, you solve yourself and not good.
Yeah, so definitely, and we managed to sort of mitigate our risk through working with literally the 45 St George's Terrace ground space was one of the last spaces in the CBD at the time. So all other commercial real estate had sort of been let because it was at that peak of the boom. So we'd done a deal with Stockland, who owned the building at the time, where so we could test the model where we'd stagger up our rent over sort of 12 months so that we could build memberships and make sure that this was actually something that people wanted.
Without being locked into something that was going to...
Yeah, that's right, without losing the house and the shirts. So that was really good and that worked well, and it allowed us to really test the model, build the community, which we started doing before the space was even open, and then grow from there. And it's really just kept growing from that point.
So when you pulled the trigger, you knew that you got a sense of momentum behind it.
That's right, yeah, definitely. And people, we had our members contribute to the design of the space as well, so they were much more engaged than just coming into a space and sitting at a desk. There was that sort of focus on community, and still is, around building connections between people to help both their business and personal. I guess something we don't talk about enough, but is actually a big motivator for this, and a big reason people come into the space, where a lot of our members could work from home if they wanted, but now people can work anywhere, and that isolation, especially for freelancers and solo founders and small businesses even, that isolation is only getting sort of worse in society. So we think spaces like this can actually do a big part of solving that problem, which is only going to get worse and worse. So
as well as exposing you to lots of different people, ideas, perspectives.
Yeah, definitely. There's all those pieces, and then there's just the day-to-day interaction with people. It's not through a device or a laptop. So we see that as something that's going to be a big growth, and we're having more and more people where they could work at home, but they would rather work a couple of days a week in this sort of environment to connect with others, look at new opportunities, go to some programs and some learning opportunities as well. So we think it's part of a bigger trend around how people work changing.
When you first got to that realisation of, I want to do this, what was the real personal sort of driver and impact that was driving you as Brodie?
Yeah, I think, I guess there's sort of that macro trend on the world changing so quickly. How do you actually, how do we support people to come up with new ideas?
I guess that's the kind of logical thing, but there must have been an emotive part.
Yeah, I think for me it probably goes back to, when I was wanting to when I was starting up businesses, there just wasn't any support, there wasn't the peer networks. So I guess it drills down directly to my own experience and trying to start stuff up, and starting new ideas is one of the hardest things. Definitely one of the hardest things you can do. And you want to be in an environment that gives you the best chance of succeeding. So I think for me, this is the sort of space that I would have liked, 10, 12, 13 years ago, where you've got that community of people who are in the same boat as you, and maybe some are further along, maybe some are further behind, but you can learn off them and also support people who are starting up with their ideas. So for me, that's really what it boils back to, is making sure that there's an environment where people, no matter what the idea is, they have the best opportunity of executing on that. And I think Spacecubed can deliver that through the community, through space, and through that support.
There's a nice sense of giving back in that, as I listen to you.
Yeah, no, I think that, and the way we've structured the business is that it is built to, in that social enterprise sort of structure, where we do have our sort of for-profit business, which is owned by a not-for-profit, not fully, but the largest shareholder is a not-for-profit, and that we actually restructured this sort of end of last year, where the not-for-profit can focus on our programs with schools and entrepreneurship in education, so run a number of school hackathons and things like that. Regional entrepreneurship, so supporting programs and events within regional WA, and also entrepreneurship research. So there actually isn't a huge amount of research into what makes a good entrepreneur. How do you support people who might not be doing well in school, but actually have really solid street smarts and could potentially be a really great entrepreneur? How can you support them? So our model allows us where we can operate our commercial ventures in our spaces and deliver our mission through that, but then at the same time
put the bread on the table, but also do it.
Then we can invest over the long term in that, in those longer term ideas around supporting, schools, universities, regional WA that support their entrepreneurs as well.
So, again, if we go back to the person who's never been here, can you describe what does it look like here and how is it used?
Yeah, so it's a co-working space, so we have a whole range of different people that come in and use it, but people can access, the hot desks, so they just come in with their laptop setup, and a lot of people do, they just want 2 days a week sort of out of their home office and in a different environment.
Yep.
They can get their own desk if they want, or they can get their own office. So they're sort of the different levels. We have a basic level of community membership which people can join, and that gets them along to events, discount for meeting rooms, along to programs, those sort of things. So it's more just to get involved. And then we've got a free sort of online level of Connect membership, which is designed for people who just want to start getting involved, find out what's going on. They might come and use a meeting room every now and then. So really we can have people from that beginning all the way through as they grow their business. And we've got bigger companies up to sort of 20 people plus that are using our spaces now. Because, people don't need their own space anymore, they just need access to space as they grow. So different types of spaces, as I mentioned, RIF is really sort of green, light, sort of creative space, whereas Flux is more industrial, sort of exposed ceilings, New York sort of loft it gets called quite a lot.
Right.
So different types of space for different types of people, but Spacecubed members can access all our different types of spaces.
And so having this sort of flexible and responsive workplace, how does that tie into this whole hot topic of the future of work? And can you just give us an insight again to somebody who doesn't quite get it? What does the future of work mean?
Yeah, I think it is all just being driven by sort of demographic shifts. So by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be Millennials, which is at the moment sort of sitting around the late 30s, sort of 40% mark. And that shift, these spaces are responding to that workforce now they can work anywhere and they want to work anywhere. So wherever they're most productive is where they want to work. So flexible workspace really facilitates that, where they can come in for 1 day, or they can get their own space, or they can get an office. They can book everything on demand, which they're used to through Uber and Airbnb and those sort of things.
Yes.
So it provides that platform for office space as well. But big shifts around 75% of the workforce being Millennials. Larger companies we talk to are looking at sort of 50% of their workforce being sort of casual, on-demand freelance workers. And they're sort of asking the question, well, if we've only got sort of 50% of the full-time staff, why would we get 100% of the space? So them getting, as part of their contracts with these freelancers, they'll get them memberships in these sort of co-working spaces. So there's a big global change happening in that space. And it's not just coming from sort of the startups, it's coming from larger companies, medium-sized businesses, all looking at how do they attract top talent, because they're going to need to offer these sort of spaces if they want to get the best talent. But also, it's just responding to how people are working differently, where they want to be in different environments that make them productive, they want to be able to work anywhere, and the technology now allows them to do that. So there's a number of sort of converging trends that are all sort of hit in the next 5 years.
Yes.
So it's going to be, there's about 14,000 co-working spaces globally at the moment. That's going to bump up to 30,000 by 2023. So there's just huge growth in this space, and it's all just driven by that big shift in how people work and what the workforce is made up of. So we're simply responding to that shift and providing services and products and experience that facilitates that.
Have you had much interest from other companies up and down here on the Terrace? Your bigger resource companies who just want to come and see what you're doing and what they can learn?
Yeah, definitely. So we have a lot of larger businesses who are now looking at maybe a smaller footprint for their head office, but then having access to flexible space as well. Also from a design perspective, a lot of the larger companies are very interested in what we're doing, where they're all sort of now just adjusting to maybe all their staff don't have a desk anymore. They have this sort of activity base, so they bring in a laptop each day and that sort of stuff. Whereas this is a whole other level where it's not just your staff, but everyone sitting around them is working for different companies as well. So that's a whole nother level. But we are seeing a lot of the bigger corporates in Perth now looking at this sort of space. And I guess something else we've done is by having industry-specific spaces where it might be a bit of a stretch for a larger resources firm or an engineering firm to just go into sort of this sort of space. Whereas we've got Core Resources Innovation Hub, which is mining and energy specific space. So project teams, startups are in there, focused on those sectors. We've got Combine, which is the ag tech sort of focused space. So I think by anchoring it to what are we globally competitive, have a global competitive advantage in, and what sort of West Australia really good at, how do we sort of wrap technology and connect entrepreneurs with new ideas in those spaces is what that provides. But yeah, definitely we've seen a big shift in. It was probably end of last year where we started having, it wasn't just sort of CEOs, marketing and HR coming through, it was CFOs going, well, how does this impact my balance sheet, that sort of thing. I think when the CFOs start coming through, things are serious.
Yes, things are serious, yeah.
So big change, and we think there'll be more and more of that as the workforce changes and as the needs of larger companies change.
I suppose, especially for the CFO, I mean, that land estate is usually the second biggest cost to a business after labour, so
yeah, big time. I think that especially when their staff are no longer wanting to go into the same head office every day, so they need to respond to what their staff actually need while they provide an opportunity for their business to grow in different environments as well.
How much do you sort of track and follow and enable the working behaviours here, and how much do you actually try and lead it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, and it's a really tough one because when you do have all these different businesses with different cultures, there's sort of an expectation that we do lead that to a degree. And it's more a leading through example, so it's the behaviours of our staff, it's small things that actually do have a big impact on what all the different members do. We've been really lucky in the way we onboard people and the way we set people up. We've had the opportunity to, people sort of get it, and because everyone's paying to be in our spaces, they opt in to what they're getting into. So I haven't been asked for a while to sign a non-disclosure agreement because someone who's wanting to do that and worried about sharing their ideas won't come into a space like this. So we did have it a little bit early on, but the model here is share your ideas, so people are opting in to that when they turn up. And that drives the culture of the space as well, if it is a sharing, open, collaborative environment, and that's been set up from your initial meeting with our staff all the way through, then that drives that culture. And don't get me wrong, there's some people who are just coming in to do their work each day, but then a lot of people are wanting to connect with others, provide opportunities, buy services off each other, trade with each other. So it really is. It's more of an opt-in thing. If they're worried about someone stealing their idea, when everyone here is pretty busy working on their own ideas, let alone worrying about stealing yours, you've got to be really passionate to work on your ideas.
Yeah.
So you're stealing them literally. Yeah, that's right. We just haven't seen it happen. And not saying that it would never happen, but people are busy. Execution is sort of everything. People are busy working on their own ideas, and especially now with the speed of things moving, your idea's only got a certain shelf life before there's definitely someone else in the world doing it, and it's about speed to market rather than worrying about who's going to steal it. Why not tell people and get them helping you rather than you just holding it and it never happening.
What role do you see Spacecubed playing in encouraging entrepreneurship and new businesses so we can start to level out our statewide addiction on digging up molecules and exporting them?
Yeah, I think, and we're starting to see some outcomes of it now where we had people who started as a team of 4, when we opened 5-6 years ago sort of thing, and now they've got, they're signing their own leases for 2,000 square metres in St George, getting their name on the building sort of thing, have 300 staff globally.
That must be rewarding.
Yeah, so I think that's sort of the measuring stick of where things are going. And also the thing to understand is, businesses aren't created in 12 months. They take, all the overnight successes are usually 10-year-old businesses. So I think it's really a matter of, we're sort of 6 years in now. I think the next 4 years again will be really interesting, where we're seeing companies growing within our spaces and then outgrowing them.
Yeah.
And I think that has a big impact where all you need is a few of those, hiring 400 or 500 people each. And it has a big impact on the economy and on what's happening locally, and gives people other options. Mining and energy is still going to be a really important part, but yeah, whatever we can do to level out those sort of peaks and troughs in the boom and bust cycle is going to be important. I think this Spacecubed can play a big role in doing that. Also we've invested recently in Skills of the Modern Age, which is a learning program, so it does sort of short courses, workshops. It was based on feedback from our members that they were wanting to upskill, it could be around 3D printing, could be around growth marketing, but they wanted the short, sharp, how they could do that quickly. And that program provides that. So I think it's also about how do we retrain, existing, considering people's jobs, they're going to, I think the number is for year 12 now, they're going to have 18 careers, not just jobs, but careers in their life. So if they're having 18 careers, they need to be retraining basically every 4 to 5 years. And our current system isn't set up to do that. So through CORE, we have a skills program where it's like geologists learning data science and those sort of things.
Yes.
So I think that's going to be an important piece as well. The space, it creates a great environment, but then what are the activities and programs that support people to retrain faster and faster and gain skills and knowledge quicker and quicker, but then also implement that. So
yes.
So it's a tough one, but I think that's part of the role that we play, and through the companies we support, we can play a bigger role in that.
And are you able? What would your view be on like the pulse or the health check of where the sort of startup entrepreneurial scene is here in Perth and Western Australia?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think so in Sydney, maybe give some interstate context. So Brisbane is investing, not just Brisbane, Queensland government is investing about I think they've got approved another 200 million, so $600 million in science, technology and innovation over 4 years. And they're sort of halfway through the spend on that. And I would have said maybe 3 years ago, Brisbane and Perth were probably at the same level as far as innovation and the ecosystem for supporting innovation and entrepreneurship goes. Now, you can't compare the two at all. So Queensland, through that cash injection, has just taken off, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like even they're doing things like chartering jumbo jets from Silicon Valley and flying in VCs into a conference, venture capitalists and startups from the US to a conference in Queensland, in Brisbane. So just thinking at a whole new level. Similar in Sydney and Melbourne, there's similar things happening. There's startup precincts being developed. So to bring that back to Perth, I think we've done a really good job here of growing organically. And it is a very resilient ecosystem as well, because there's a number of different players and partners doing different things, which in themselves are financially sustainable, whereas, and not just financially, delivering on what they want to deliver, but also, they can keep delivering it because they've got a business model that works. So that's a really good thing, but we haven't had that alignment, I think, between universities, government, corporates, and that community.
So we're all linked in.
Yeah, that's the challenge, I think, at the moment. And there's groups like Startup WA, which we support, that are working to do that. But when you don't have that alignment, it's very difficult to, we're not going to be able to achieve what's possible without that alignment. So there are risks in Queensland. There's huge risks that if the government changes, which inevitably will at some point, that money will disappear, and then all of the businesses that were built through that may also disappear because they don't have a business model.
Yeah.
Whereas in Perth, everyone's got a business model because there was no large cash injection.
There's yin and yang to that, isn't there?
But at the same time, there could be a lot more from getting a lot more activity. Australia's a bit strange in that industry really looks to the government for leadership around this sort of stuff, rather than sort of going it alone. So there is that expectation, and it's across the board.
I think
it's definitely a cultural thing. Yeah, you don't see it in the US. When you bring up the government, no one's paying attention. Yeah, but here there is an expectation. Maybe it's definitely a cultural thing, that the government will be on board with major projects, major initiatives. It's sort of the group that's bringing everyone together. And there's a bit of activity in that space at the moment, but not at the level of other cities, and then not even to mention other countries. So Singapore's investing in that same 4-year period $19 billion in science and technology.
That's next level.
That's next level. So, and it's not just them, it's other countries, especially through Southeast Asia, that are looking at that because they're wanting to create the best ecosystem that ideas come to them to grow. So that's what we're competing with. And at the moment, we're not, we're not really competing at all. So there's still a lot of, at a grassroots level and at a community level, I think the ecosystem's doing really well. It's sustainable. There's good outcomes coming from it. There's good businesses growing from it. But there's more work to do around how do we align all of the interests and really grow as an overall ecosystem, because we're not there. We're not competing interstate, and then we're definitely not competing globally.
So. Yeah, it always makes us seem a little bit like a village at times, which at times we are here at Entrepreneur. What would it take for all that to sort of come together, do you reckon? It's very easy now to say, oh, it'll take somebody in government. And then fall into that Australian trap.
That's right, exactly. And you can't sort of wait for that either. The world's going to keep moving.
It's focusing on the uncontrollable.
That's right. So I think it is, and there's definitely work being done. So on Wednesday, there's a session with Startup WA's hosting of all the different sort of startup ecosystems and innovation ecosystem supporters to see how can we better work together to create a better outcome. So I think there's activities already underway. I think there can probably be more from corporate WA, looking at who very soon is going to need a lot of technology workers.
Yes.
And that's probably the one thing they're going to need more and more of. And if they're not being developed here, it's going to cost them a lot to get them in from overseas.
Yes,
so
we're going to see exactly the same that we did years ago with the mining too.
Exactly. So, we know all the numbers that industry is going to keep growing. All companies need those staff. So how can they get engaged to actually support that being developed locally? And it's a long-term plan. It's not going to happen in 1 or 2 or 3 years. It's going to be a 4 to 15-year plan. So I think thinking in those longer timescales, and that's really, all the leases we're signing are 10 years minimum sort of thing. So we're thinking long-term about what we're doing.
Yes.
So I think it is really making sure that, everyone is thinking long-term and can work together, which I think all the seeds of development are there. And everyone has been in this startup ecosystem for the last sort of 6 years. So it's about how do we level it up to that next point.
What's the tipping point?
And what's the tipping point? And how do we get all those different groups, whether it's government, university, community sectors and not-for-profits and corporates working together in that common alignment. So I think there's a role for each of those sectors to play in that, to actually wanting it. I guess the challenge is going to be, if mining is picking up now, will everyone get busy again and forget about that?
Follow the easy money.
So I think there's a number of conflicting priorities around that, but it's all here. It's just a matter of packaging it and getting everyone working in the same direction. So I'm keen, and we've been working with Startup WA and other industry groups around how that can happen. But I think it is going to come down to individuals working together to get things really moving.
So if we go back to the types of characters that come here, that you're members, and we start to go a little bit deeper into the entrepreneurial journey, can you give me a rough overview of the demographics of your members?
It's pretty varied. So definitely sort of that millennial age group. So sort of what is it now? It's 28 through to 25 to 38 or whatever it is, 35. So that group, I think it's even bigger than that actually. It's a wider group than that. Definitely a lot within that group. But we've also got, because we've got larger businesses now using our spaces, and medium-sized businesses and international businesses using us as satellite offices, there is a greater variance in that. So we've got, people from all age groups. There already are a number of student co-working spaces, so we probably have less students than I would probably like. I think it would be good to have more students. But students generally come along to our events and programs rather than working in the space each day, because they're still studying, they're still doing other things. But it is sort of, that sort of 25 age group plus all the way through, from all different walks of life and backgrounds using the space.
Right. I'm just curious to know if there are any people like myself, 43, with family and commitments.
Definitely. And a lot of people, especially with younger families, use this space because they want to separate work and home.
Right.
So they'll come in here and work because they don't, they want home, when they're at home, to be for the family, and when they're at work to be for work.
That nice clear division
correct.
between spaces and anchoring in what you do in one place and anchoring in what you do in another.
Because when you work at home, it tends to blur everything. So this provides a solid line for that to change. So definitely we've got people of all ages using our spaces and all demographics and social backgrounds as well. Because it is a really open, it's about how do we support people to do whatever they're doing, no matter what that might be, and people come from all different backgrounds with all interesting ideas. I don't judge ideas anymore because you never know what's going to work. We had some people in here, what was it now, 5 years ago, having a Bitcoin meetup, and turns out that was quite a big thing, whereas at the time I wasn't so sure. It's about who knows what ideas are going to go, and let's just give people the best chance of working on whatever it is they're working on.
If you sort of have a mental scan across the number of people that have come through here and those that have been successful, are there any sort of traits, behavioural patterns, or anything that you've spotted in individuals that are like really keys for success in there?
Yeah, I think being adaptable is a big one. So being able to change what you're working on really quickly. In the startup industry, it's called pivoting, where you're working on one idea, you get customer feedback and validation, and then you change to address whatever the new idea might be based on that feedback. So it's actually real market research. So I think that's a big one. People have to be able to take feedback and then act on it really quickly, and the quicker you can do that, the more successful you'll be.
Get your ego out of the way.
Definitely get that out of the way. Ideas everyone's got ideas, but it's about, are there customers for it, and can you actually deliver on it and execute? So I think that's people who have done well and have grown their businesses have really focused on that, and done it in a lean way as well. So they haven't got a loan or mortgage their house to do that idea. They've tested it rapidly, and it's only at the point where they know, if you put in $1, it'll spit out $3 sort of thing, and you know that your business works. It's at that point that they start investing heavily. But there's lots of opportunities now to test your ideas rapidly without spending all your money on making it happen. I think the people that are really open with what they're working on and willing to take help to get their idea up and running, that's an important trait for sure. I think one of the ones I look at is, will they get on a plane or not? So I give the example of one of the companies we invested in through our accelerator program, Hum, got an opportunity in Berkeley in the US. And then within, I think, probably 2 or 3 weeks, they were on a plane and gone. And sort of set up there, just gone. Yeah, moved their whole company there because they had that opportunity. And they're in esports, so Perth isn't exactly the mecca of esports, whereas the US is a pretty awesome spot to be. So it makes sense for their business. Another one, we were mentioning to one of our members that we'd been contacted by an investor I think it was in Singapore, and they were interested in opportunities. And that person then said, can you connect us with that? And then 2 days later, they're on a plane to Singapore to meet the person. So I think there's a lot to, it's relatively inexpensive to get anywhere in the world now, and face-to-face contact is really, one of the key ways to move things forward more quickly. So will people get on a plane for their ideas is probably a judge for me. And obviously there's a lot of small businesses don't need to do that because their market is here, but really those scale up, businesses, will the founders or the team jump on a plane to go where their customers are, or do what they need to do to get stuff done.
Do whatever is required.
Do whatever's required. And it is amazing how big a barrier that, spending the money to jump on a plane to explore an opportunity is for people. So I think that's probably a quick summary of, the different traits we've seen. But it's the good news is there's lots of people who are willing to do all those things and take feedback and learn those skills to build their ideas.
Yeah. Is there have you noticed any sort of similarities in the steps in the journey? And again, I'm not talking about the idea or building the company. I'm talking about, because people, there's nothing more exciting than coming up with an idea. But then going through that, is there sort of a commonalities in the journey you see?
Mainly through the startup journey from they have the idea, they then need to validate it, so we provide a whole range of ways, hackathons and things for them to validate their idea, form a team, those sort of things. Then they can go into one of our accelerator programs to get seed funding to grow their idea. So Plus 8 does that. We've had 13 companies go through that so far. And then once they're through that, they sort of know they've got something, and they look at how they scale it up or grow it, and they've got customers. So that's probably the general process.
So it must be a real sense of idea and curiosity, and then, okay, I think we've nailed something down, and then having to refine it.
Yeah. And also at any of those points as well, needing to potentially go back to the beginning.
Yes.
Because what you're working on if you don't do those cycles sort of quickly enough of the iteration of your idea and testing with customers, you can get stuck spending money on either development or a new product or something like that.
Yeah.
You find out no one really wants, and luckily it's happening less and less where, we haven't had for a while someone spending $100,000 building an app which they forgot to ask the potential customers if they wanted, sort of thing. But you would be surprised, it definitely happens.
Yes.
People forget that, who's their customer, who's actually going to be paying the money for this thing. Because that's
not just my idea.
That's right.
It's something that someone's got to buy.
Someone's got to buy it. Or you need a customer. Don't just build stuff because it's cool. Oh, you definitely can, but that's a hobby. That's no problem.
Yes.
But if you're building a business, you need to make sure that, there is a customer who's going to pay for this, and really clearly defining who that is.
Super. If we look at those sort of skills that you talked about, whereabouts can we, or even the mindsets that we're talking about, where can we go and where can someone start to foster those and develop those?
Yep.
And I'm talking about, you mentioned children as well, but also as adults, because there's probably a number of people, much like myself, who had a career for a period of time and then all of a sudden a bit of awakening that, this is not necessarily for me, and now, after 15 years of knowing what I can do to generate money through finding a job and executing that well, I want to go do something creative and stuff like that. So where do I learn those sort of resiliency skills and stuff that I need?
Yeah, and it's interesting because we're having more and more sort of baby boomers that are retiring, coming into our spaces, looking at upskilling, and also they just want to work a couple of days a week. So what are the opportunities to do that? So I think that builds back to the whole labour market completely changing and different requirements from, people aren't going to necessarily have the time. If you need to retrain every 5 years, you're not going to have the time to go and do a 3-year degree every 5 years. It just won't work anymore. So I think some of the ways we've taken
a bit obsolete almost on that front.
And the universities are all working on what does the future of degrees in education look like, but probably not as fast as the market is changing. So,
yes, yeah.
So that's a big challenge. But I guess some of the things you can do through our spaces and in the broader community, so I mentioned hackathons, which are weekend-long events, and they essentially are, you might come out at the end of it with a business, but the goal is where you have 100 people come along for the weekend. They come in on a Friday night. People can get up and pitch the idea they want to work on. People then form teams around that idea. So usually you get could be between 7 and 15 teams, and then they'll go through that sort of startup process in 54 hours. So they'll do their business model, work out their business model, go and meet customers in the street, sort of thing, and judge that, test their idea with them. They'll then prototype it, so they'll create could be wireframes or an actual prototype, and then they'll pitch it to sort of investors or judges on the Sunday night. So they go through the whole startup process with a new team of people that usually they don't know within 54 hours. And what it does is builds skills in teamwork that they might otherwise not have. Build skills around sort of customer validation and actually checking that your customer wants what you're building. Introduces them to different skill sets as well. So no one can start a business by themselves, especially in the technology space. You need your finance person, you need your business development person, you need a technical person. And the same with most other businesses. Those skills don't sit within one person. It's impossible. So you need to find people to work with, and this sort of event provides that opportunity. And then it's about, we've seen people at the end of that weekend who have made sales, they've got revenue coming through for their new product or service or idea. So I think that's a good way to test an idea really quickly rather than
just throw yourself in it.
That's right.
See where you are.
And get started, meet people, and get moving from there. I mentioned skills of the modern age, so that's another good one where they run sort of short courses, workshops around what are the modern skills you need, whether it's growth marketing or 3D printing, those sort of skills. Nate runs a number of different programs for that. Every month there's a whole range of different things you can go and do, and they're designed for people who are sort of mid-career, looking at upskilling in what they're doing and discovering some new skills. So I think more things like that will start happening, and that's definitely the feedback from that program has been, and those workshops has been really great, with people doing more of them after they've done one. So there's a number of different, the general community, there's workshops here all the time. I can't keep up with all the workshops that are happening. There are so many opportunities to learn. I think it's, you can join Spacecubed with a Connect membership for free, and then get access and see what's happening with all of those different programs. But they are for all ages. We're seeing all sorts of different people doing them from all walks of life, and I guess it just builds back to that need to retrain and reskill more and more frequently. There's just not going to be the opportunities to take long breaks from work to do that, so you're going to have to do it basically all the time.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Super. So if you look back across your journey with Spacecubed, what are some of the key personal learning points that you've picked up along the way?
I think definitely a lot of my energy comes from the people around me, which is probably the same for everyone, but I think for me particularly, like if members are having a good experience, then that sort of empowers me to keep going, keep doing more good work.
Yeah, that's your market feedback.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I have recently, so I went on a longer holiday and came back and met with a lot of our members to get feedback from them on how we're going, where we should go next, that sort of thing. And that was really rewarding in that a lot of the feedback was really good, which is awesome. But at the same time, just the things we could action that were just small, simple things, but made their lives easier, and then incorporate that into what we do was, you just want to know if you weren't talking with your customers, talking with your members. So for me, I think personally that's a big driver. I think I have managed to have a reasonably good, for building anything, a reasonably good work-life balance. So I still managed to take holidays, still managed to spend a lot of time with family and friends. Don't work weekends much anymore. The first few years definitely it was long days and weekends, but now we've got a great team at Spacecubed that can do a lot of those sort of can do a lot of the work and do a really good job and good at engaging members and good at bringing in new members. So I think that for me, I've managed to actually maintain some sort of balance. I mean, still every now and then it might get busy when we've got projects on other things, but that's been good. I think other personal learnings, just that there is so many good people doing good stuff is really reassuring, and that's what our business is built on. Is people are actually building their ideas, they're following what they've been dreaming about. So that again gives me a lot of energy, but also I think that as a whole is we need more of that.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the way things are going is people are going to be forced to do that moving forward because there just won't be the full-time jobs anymore. So people will need these skills, they'll need these types of spaces, and they'll need that community of support that previously a larger corporate would have given them through that sort of
L&D budgets and plans
and just people, water cooler conversations, that sort of thing, which just won't exist anymore. So or will exist for much fewer people. So I think Spacecubed and the work we're doing can provide that to a whole generation of people that aren't going to be able to have that same level of security. Or it will be a different type of security, waking up every morning and having the app tell you that you've got a bunch of jobs happening that day and you know exactly what's happening, but it's all for different businesses.
Yes.
It's just a different type of security.
And
something that a lot of people would much prefer, but also a lot of people wouldn't. So
I like it because that makes you more accountable for what you're doing. I've been in a position where I've had a career for a period of time, and I worked for one company for 5 years, and you're abdicating a large amount of responsibility while you're doing that and training out and what have you, and accepting some stuff that you don't necessarily want to. So I like this where you are more responsible for what you're doing, what you're delivering, and where it's going. Whilst that might sound great and free and easy on one level, it comes with a huge amount of responsibility and discipline on another.
Yeah, and I guess that's going to be the challenge. Is more and more people are sort of pushed into that category of needing to be more responsible for their day-to-day, month-to-month activities, and where the next dollar's sort of coming from, and making sure that they are on all the platforms that allow them to find work, whether it's professional services or whatever it might be, or in communities where they can find work quickly and more fluidly. I guess that's going to be the challenges. People they've been told that they'll go to university, get their degree, and then work in a job, which that's just not going to exist anymore.
Yes.
So I guess that path is disappearing rapidly. So I think that's the challenge. It's how do we prepare people for that, and I think Spacecubed can play a role in how people are prepared for that sort of world and make it easier to make that less of a daunting thing. Because quite a lot of people, I'm comfortable in that world, but a lot of people aren't. So.
Yeah. How has your journey affected your almost sense of who you are and how you look at Brodie yourself?
I think it's definitely helped me work out, what I want to do. Like, I find it tough now to go into a normal job sort of thing.
Yeah. You found your purpose?
Found purpose, definitely, and I think we've stayed pretty true to that the whole time as well. I think everything we've done and the different brands we've got are all focusing on that core purpose of Spacecubed, and I guess my purpose as well around how do we support people through that journey and support business and support new ideas. So I think it's definitely reinforced that rather than anything else, and I am really happy going to work every day and knowing that the people we work with are all committed to that. We've just done more planning days recently, and everyone in our team is committed to that purpose as well and gets it, which is really nice, even some of the newer stuff that haven't been around that long. Excited about sort of where things are heading next, but for me that purpose is definitely reinforced. It's given me some awesome learning opportunities as well, which otherwise I don't think I ever would have had. So I've been able to travel quite a lot to see different spaces, and I've travelled a lot before, but definitely that's given me this has given me a really great platform to do that, speaking at conferences, those sort of things. For me personally, it's worked out really well.
So find your message. Yeah. Platform to deliver your message.
That's right, and Spacecubed I think is a great platform to do that. And we've grown as the market's grown, and as long as there's members that are wanting what we're doing next, we'll keep growing.
Awesome. And what do the next 3 to 5 years look like for you, professionally and outside?
Yeah, I guess so. From a business perspective, we're really looking at talking with our members at the moment as to what they need. We've got some renovations happening on one of our floors, but looking at what's needed next as that whole community keeps changing so quickly. What can we do to better support them? So there's a fair bit of work being done on that right now. It's a really tough one in sort of 3 to 5 years. What this whole space will be, because it has, we've been open 6 years and it's changed so much in that time. If you just take those stats, it's by that point, you're looking at sort of 65% of the workforce being millennials. So I'm still unsure of what that will do to this sort of space. Sometimes I think we're just not thinking big enough in what we're doing.
Yes.
Because that is a huge shift that is going to have a massive impact. So I think that for me is more that do we need to think bigger about what we're doing and what does that look like as a business? I think that our spaces are doing awesome and they'll keep growing. Programs are great and they'll keep growing, but what's the bigger things we can do? But we'll work that out in time. For me personally, it's really looking at how how my role now is how do I support the team to deliver, because they're the ones who are sort of on the coalface working with our members every day. So how can I better, from a leader's perspective, support them to develop their leadership skills, do what they want to do in life? I really see this as a vehicle for them to excel and learn as well. Spacecubed is a vehicle for that. And then I guess the last one is, from a personal perspective, it's about just making sure I can maintain that sort of work-life balance and because if I don't, then it's going to become a lot harder to deliver all this stuff. So, so I think we're well set up, and personally I'm set up well to be able to do that.
Awesome. What are some of your sort of habits that you routinely do that keep you grounded, effective, focused, energetic?
I think I already mentioned it, but talking with members is definitely one of them. That keeps me focused on. They're the ones paying us and making sure that we can keep doing what we're doing. So knowing where their head's at and where they're heading next is really important, and gives me inspiration to keep going. So definitely that one. I think managed to mention this as well, but taking those sort of regular holidays is a big one. So managed to take 2 months off. Recently got to go to Japan and cycle around Japan, which was awesome. For 20 days. It was a lot hillier than I expected, more mountainous than I expected, not even hills. But I guess having that time to be able to think and get out of the business, even going to the Coworking conference last week and getting exposed to new ideas and see where the market's sort of heading, I think those sort of opportunities are important. It's one of those things, even when I get invited to some random sort of events and talks and things, I still think it's good to go to those, even if, no matter how busy you are, because you never know who you'll meet there. And also you never know what the ideas that are being shared, what impact that'll have on your thinking. So for me, that's a big one, is making sure that you get regularly exposed to new ideas in different industries and setting up so that's sort of scheduled in. It's not something where you're like, oh, hang on, I've been working in the business and focused for 5 months now and haven't had any new ideas.
Pop up.
That's right, yeah. So I think scheduling that in regularly, and that's a big one for me as well.
Mm. If you could go back and have a quick conversation with Brodie back in 2010 before he embarked on the odyssey of Spacecubed, what piece of advice would you give him?
It's a really boring one, but it's one that would have saved a whole bunch of time and energy, is find someone who knows property really well up front, because I don't have a property background and didn't know anything about property, but the decisions we were making were very property. It sort of underwrites everything else. So the deals you do on the property front basically set up your business for success or failure.
Yeah.
So it's a very it's a very specific one. I would find the best property person I know and get them to teach me.
Right.
That would be my recommendation to myself. On the leadership front, I think I've done a lot of learning, but I think probably reinforce that's important. So, because that can be the sort of stuff that you sort of drop when things get hard or busy. So I'd reinforce that, make sure you do take those opportunities to go and learn and go overseas and see where everything's heading, because that reinforces sort of every decision that's been made in the business. So that's probably the two things. It's definitely the property thing. It's if I knew then what I knew now about property, it would have probably made us a lot more money. It helped us to grow a lot bigger. It's worked out fine, but you don't know. And then on the leadership front and learning front, making sure that you commit to that time, because it's what influences everything.
One final question is, if you could input one piece of learning into almost everyone around, almost like in the Matrix when he shows up, just to make life more straightforward, what would that be?
I think it would be to just get started quicker. So rather than procrastinate about things, try things. Just no matter how early you think it is, get started and start testing and learning and trying your ideas, whatever it might be. There's still, and to be honest, I don't see it as much anymore, because I think once people walk through the doors here or sign up online or whatever it might be, they've made a conscious decision that they're going to get started on something.
This is the first level of commitment.
That's right.
By signing up to company.
Exactly. So this is a way for them to commit to themselves, similar to as people do with gym memberships, but hopefully more successful than that. For people to say, I made a conscious decision that I'm going to start something, or work on my idea, whatever it might be. I think it's for everyone else, and it's probably the broader group in the population as well. We just don't see them here. Is if you've got ideas or if you're thinking about something, then the quicker you start it, the quicker you start learning and can pivot and change what you're doing to get where you want to go. So that would be the one thing. It's I think we could be a lot further along if people got started earlier with things. So
like it. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, Brodie. If anybody wants to come and find out more about you and Spacecubed, where can they go?
So you can just go to spacecubed.com or shoot me an email at brodie@spacecubed.com. And we have open houses in the space, so you're welcome to come and try working. Just register through our website. But there's lots of events on. As I said, I can't keep up, so all of that's available through the website, and there is lots of opportunities to learn and work and meet really interesting people.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
No worries, thank you.
Thank you.